before we are marching today have come to the door of the Prime Minister to give this visual demonstration. We know this is a genocide. The world knows this is a genocide. We will not allow you to turn away from the consequences of your actions.
On the anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, it's a day for us to come together and reaffirm the basis of the Palestinian struggle. An anti-colonial struggle against the forces that have tried to colonize their land every day since 1917. The shameful history of the Balfour Declaration generates a special responsibility on us, the British people. A special responsibility on us to see that the rights of the Palestinians are realized. A responsibility on us to see that Britain sells no more arms to Israel.
My message to the British government is this. If you continue supplying weapons knowing full well that those bombs are going to fall on people's homes and hospitals, are going to kill children and many more, if you continue supplying those weapons knowing that they're being used for the illegal invasion of Lebanon and the bombing of Beirut, if you continue supplying those weapons knowing they're going to be used to bomb Yemen and increasingly to bomb Iran as well, and you know full well what the views are of the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, the UN General Assembly, and the vast majority of the nations of the world, and you know what the views of the people of the world are about this conflict, then you are two things. One, on the wrong side of history. Two, complicit in acts of genocide against the Palestinian people.
Our Prime Minister, our Foreign Secretary is asking us to be silent about ethnic cleansing, to be silent about extermination, to be silent about illegal occupation, of torture, rape, of apartheid, to be silent against war crimes and crimes against humanity. And friends, to be silent about genocide. Yes, genocide. Because all of those words I mentioned are not words we have dreamt up. They are the words of UN experts. They are the words of the world's highest courts. They are the words of the most respected experts of genocide. And I'm proud to say of also the words of War on One, the first UK human rights organisation to say Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people.
We're told constantly that Israel is only defending itself. Last week it bombed Iran in a massive escalation of the war. It is bombing Lebanon every day. It is killing Lebanese people every day. It is killing UN peacekeeping troops every day. It is doing all of these things, and yet we are told it is defending itself. I would like to ask Joe Biden and Keir Starmer and David Lammy, how is it that Israel has the right to defend itself by bombing other people, but Iran doesn't have the right to defend itself? That Lebanon doesn't have the right to defend itself, that Yemen doesn't have the right to defend itself.
Our own community often accuses the Jewish bloc of being divorced from our ethno-religious identity, but our calendar doesn't lie. You can pretend our history began in 1948. You can worship the golden calf of Zionism, but no, deep in what remains of your soul, as rotted as it has been by a year spent justifying the brutal murder of children, that our ancestors would not abide by this. They They would not abide by our government using our community as a fig leaf for their own genocidal actions. They would not abide by the cheapening of Palestinian and Lebanese life, not when their own was so cheapened under the great boot of empire, as the lives of so many of your ancestors were too, by the British, by the Portuguese, by the Dutch, by the Americans, by the Spanish and the French and the Germans and the Russians. Our demands remain the same as theirs. My demands remain the same as my grandmother's, whose wedding ring I'm wearing today. Freedom for all of us. Not just the lucky few who have been given an ethno-state.
From Jabalia in North Gaza to my Mas al-Jabal in South Lebanon, our reunion and absolute liberation will manifest beyond our imaginaries. Take these words as yours. Let each breath of our people galvanize you into escalating each and every action. Rise! Escalate! Escalate! Escalate!
In Gaza, every university lies in ruins. Tens of thousands of students will never graduate. Their dreams are buried under the rubble. For Palestinians, simply getting to school is a battle against checkpoints, bullets, against walls built to contain and oppress. Education should not be a privilege. It is a basic and fundamental human right. Yet our universities remain complicit, clinging to partnerships that support occupation, that profit from Palestinian blood. Our university, SOAS, imposed sanctions on myself and my good friends Tara and Abel. We are suspended now from SOAS for 6 months, with Abel being completely expelled and not allowed to work in the student union. Shame on SOAS! Our administration, led by Adam Habib, who's known to crack down on any student movement, not just in London, but in South Africa with the University of London, took us to court by granting an injunction, trying to stifle our voices and criminalize protest on campus. Shame! They are setting a precedent for future generations of repression, which is why we must combat it. This is more than an attack on individual students. It's an attack on democracy itself. These institutions should stand as bastions of free speech, especially SOAS with its decolonial rhetoric. Yet they continue to attack everyone who stands for the liberation of oppressed people. And the massacre of the Palestinians have revealed the true faces of these Western powers. Kamala Harris is no better than Donald Trump. Keir Starmer is no better than Rishi Sunak. They have one thing in common. They are genocidal war criminals profiting from Palestinian blood.
When we see the horror intensifying, and when we see our government doubling down on its complicity, there are two risks that we must confront across this movement. The first is that people will succumb to despair and hopelessness. Every single one of us will feel moments of complete impotence in the face of the power that sustains Israel's regime of oppression. Most importantly, the power whose embassy sits just a few hundred meters from here, and whose people next week will either elect an overt fascist or a member of the current genocide enabling regime. But my response to people who say I feel despair is to repeat the words of Omar Barghouti, the Palestinian co-founder of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, who told us directly just a few weeks ago, none of you have the luxury of feeling despair. You do not have the luxury of genocide fatigue, because the Palestinian people do not have that luxury. Palestinians, on this anniversary of Balfour, need no reminding of the length of their struggle for liberation. And right now, in the face of genocide, they continue to do what they have done for generations, to resist. A resistance embedded in the simple principle that it is better to die on one's feet than live in subjugation on one's knees. And friends, the second risk we must confront. The second risk is the risk of division and disunity, sometimes expressed in arguments about the tactics we choose to use. What history tells us is that ending systems of oppression requires the resistance of the oppressed people, but it requires the existence of a global movement of solidarity that employs the full range of tactics to change the dynamics of power. So anybody who thinks that marching alone will change things has not studied history. But anybody who thinks that mass mobilizations like this march are not a crucial part of bringing the change required also has not studied history. When we come together like this on the streets, we show to the people watching in Palestine, and believe me, they are watching. We prove to the government and we demonstrate to each other that our determination has not and will not diminish. But even more importantly, what we take away with us when we leave here and travel home is the knowledge that we are part, you are part of a mass movement, and the energy and the inspiration to carry this campaign into every single one of our communities, our workplaces, our colleges and our universities. So friends, we need to keep marching, we need to keep lobbying, we need people to keep taking effective direct action. We need mass support for our boycott and divestment campaigns, like the one we are directing at Barclays Bank, which has led over 5,000 people to close their accounts.